I think part of what is driving the sort of surprise interest, I feel surprise interest in me and in Eric, is the void of authenticity. Mm-hmm. And so the very fact of anything authentic, it doesn't matter if it lines up with the way you think things are or not, just the simple fact that it's unpolluted by bullshit is so powerful that it causes people who wouldn't otherwise be interested in what you had to say to listen. So at some level, I feel like that's the trade, is that we have given up the anonymity part in exchange to illustrate that this really is authentic, and that is driving a lot of the interest.
I also feel like our hands are somewhat forced, that it is astounding all of the interesting and important things that are simply not being said in a world where you go through these news cycles and it just repeats the same mind-numbing perspective that doesn't really, it can't be made sensitive upon reflection. I think, just getting back to your original question, I think our grandfather, Harry Rubin, in particular, refused to teach. And at least in my case, I remember he gave me this guitar, and he said, all you need to do is tune it, you don't need to play it. And it was a very strange instruction, like, why would you have a guitar if you could only tune it? And his point really was, it'll be so frustrating to have a nice guitar that is tuned, that you don't know how to play, that you will figure out that it's a mystery and that you do not need a teacher. And I remember going to the UCLA Music Library and Xeroxing all of these beautiful guitar pieces. I could barely read the notes on the page, but it turned out that this was a very strange and interesting form of teaching for two people who couldn't actually. And it really needs to be emphasized. You can think all you want about privilege, about maleness or whiteness or this or that, but if you have a learning disability that is as conceived of by the educational system, it is almost impossible to lead a normal life. And so you either find some crazy way of overcompensating, and then you have an original perspective because the system can't serve you, or you sort of accept that you are the problem. And I think neither of us accepted that we were the problem, and it was sort of a radical overreaction to the mismatch in education.
The story about Harry giving Eric a guitar and telling him to tune it, but you don't have to play it, that results in Eric having picked up, how many instruments can you play something on?
More or less, it's all theory. None of it is musical ability. It's all theory. And then the idea is that each one is just a slightly different interface into this abstraction. And so it looks like, okay, you play N instruments, but that's not at all what's going on. It's just,
right. But
here's the underlying secret, and any instrument affords the same opportunity.
I've been there. You're playing the ukulele, you're playing the piano, you're playing that thing, you're banging drums.
So the intersection between math, language, and Eric has also picked up many different languages, not fluently, but the point is enough to get by, Turkish, Russian. The point is there's something interesting going on with Eric and the ability to abstract these very particular things so that he can jump from one to the adjacent one.
If you agree to cripple yourself so that you will never achieve mastery, you can pick up a very large core very, very quickly by rearranging through this trick of sort of 80-20ing, do 20% of the work, get 80% of the benefit, and almost no education is structured this way. But if you actually wanted to educate people like this, you could suddenly have an entire population of presumably learning disabled kids who could suddenly do so much more than they ever imagined, because it's, everybody who plays the guitar, they have a lot of positive reinforcement. If you play the piano, you're doing scales and learning to read music in two different staffs for forever before you get to anything interesting. And so if you make the world look much more like the guitar, where 3 or 4 chords unlocks 85% of the music that you want to play, you can do that with anything. You can do it with language, you can do it with mathematics, you can do it with biology. We just don't teach that way.